very good afternoon. I would like to invite guests still standing that I think there are enough seats. I would say a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Christoph Kamp. I'm the director of the Office of the High Commissioner on National Minorities, and it's really wonderful to see so many familiar people. I think we realize on an event like this that there are many different ways and different meanings for all individuals of us by working with Max van der Stoel. And for me personally, it was when I was an intern in his office in 1993. And it's really nice then to be back here with you all to celebrate the legacy of Max van der Stoel. As you noticed in the invitation and the program, we celebrate the Max van der Stoel Award 2020. We come together a year later than planned because last year we felt that an online event would not do justice to the significance of the award and the impact we seek to make with holding the ceremony in person. So we are very grateful that the event can take place. Unfortunately, it will not be possible to have a reception after the event. The award ceremony will be opened with a music recording of the song One Starry Night. This is a traditional love song recorded by many artists and which comes from the traveler tradition. And here it is sung by a traveler woman, Richie Collins, who lives in Dublin and who has worked with Pavee for many years as a primary healthcare worker. And her story also features in the program which you will find on your chair. In 2018, Richie Collins was one of the 4 women chosen to sing a song for Pope Francis in Ireland's national sports stadium, Croke Park.
One stormy night, as I lay sleeping, one stormy night, as I lay in bed, I dreamed I heard wagon wheels are screeching. But when I have woke, my love had fled. I searched the highway like by and highway. I searched out over camping places too. I will inquire all other people. Oh, tales near sight of light of you. For it's many's on my love, would you I've traveled. Many's the hour love, would you I spend. I thought you were my love forever. But now I find, love, you were only lent. I am drunk today, sometimes I'm sober. A constant roving from town to town. But when I am dead, love, and my days are over, come on, my dear friends, and lay me down. For it's many's done, my love, would you I've traveled. Many's the hour, love, of which you I spend. I thought you were my love forever. But now I find, love, you were only lend. But now I find, love, you were only lend.
It's now my pleasure to invite High Commissioner Abdrahmanov to address the audience.
Dear Minister, dear laureates and jury members, dear family members and friends of the late Max van der Stoel, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to warmly welcome all of you to the 9th biennial Max van der Stoel Award. Every 2 years, the High Commission on National Minority and government of the Netherlands organizing the Max van der Stoel Award ceremony. It is in recognition of the extraordinary work of an individual or an institution dedicated to improving the position of national minorities in the OEC region. I am honored to welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, His Excellency Ben Knapen, who will present the prize to the 2020 winner, Pavee Traveller and Roma Center from Dublin, Ireland, represented here today by Dr. Anastasia Crickley and Mr. Martin Collins. I would like to take this opportunity to express my deepest appreciation to the government of the Netherlands for funding the prize, as well as our ceremony today. The winners of the 2020 Max van der Stoel Award have traveled from Ireland to accept the award and share their story with us. And of course, the impact of the work of our winners would be not possible without excellent cooperation of the Irish government. Therefore, I would like to especially commend the government of Ireland for their commitment and support to building a cohesive, strong, and resilient society. I want to also acknowledge the presence of 4 former High Commissioners of the OEC on national minorities at our ceremony today, the distinguished Rolf Ekeus, Knut Wallebeck, Astrid Thors, and Lamberta Zanier, who also occupied this very prestigious position of the OEC Secretary General. And this position was also occupied by other then Secretary General of the OEC, the Judge Marc Perrin de Bruchambeau. Warm welcome to you, Secretary General. And I would like to thank the team of the Peace Palace for hosting our event despite the ongoing pandemic-related limitations that continue to impact our daily lives and activities, including cancelled reception after this ceremony. In 2020, our distinguished jury, composed of eminent persons in the field of national minority rights and conflict prevention and chaired by former High Commissioner Lamberto Zanier, unanimously selected Pavee Travel and Roma Center as the winner of the 2020 Max van der Stoel Award. I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to 4 ongoing members of our jury, in particular Barbara Umen, Alexander Verkhovsky, Daniel Surwer, and Rainer Hoffmann, who have served for 3 terms. At the same time, I want to welcome our new jury member, Petra Rotter, and reiterate that I look forward to working with her in the years to come. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Pavee Point, with its unique grassroots efforts, systematic work, and tailored approach to the needs of their community, stood out among the nominees. I believe the winner's method of work embodies what my eminent predecessor, and the first High Commission on National Minorities, Max van der Stoel valued as the most effective way to improving the position of national minorities, which is to allow them to empower themselves so they take ownership of actions that bring about change. Pavee Point Travel and Roma Center serves as an outstanding example of an organization that has done exactly this: empower national minorities so that they themselves can become the driving force for positive change. Pavee Point has displayed continuous commitment to integration with respect for diversity and has furthered the interests of travel and Roma communities, showing that unity and solidarity can triumph over division and discrimination. Roma and traveler communities have experienced a long history of multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. This has led to further inequalities, exclusion, and cycles of poverty. The COVID-19 pandemic and its aftermath could have further exacerbated the already existing vulnerabilities of Roma and traveler communities. At the height of the pandemic, Pavee Point worked in partnership with a range of governmental agencies and departments, the National Police Service, and other travel organizations on projects to ensure that the support and protection was provided to the Roma and traveler communities. During the pandemic, their efforts yielded key achievements. Travel and Roma were named as vulnerable groups, identified as the priority groups for COVID-19 testing and vaccination, were protected under a national ban on traveler evictions during lockdown, received culturally appropriate COVID-19 health education materials and support from healthcare workers from their communities, and much more. To understand what has made this organization so effective and unique, we must look into its past and its founding principles. Since its inception in 1985, the Pavee Point Travel and Roma Center has been working toward building a bridge between Roma and Irish traveler communities and the rest of Irish society. This organization has been celebrating the cultures and traditions of both communities and advocating for the empowerment and participation in society at the regional, national, and international levels. The organization's success lies in empowering travel and Roma communities and focusing integration initiatives on two important areas: education and healthcare. Pavee Point successfully lobbied the authorities of Ireland to extend official legal recognition for the traveler community as a minority group in March 2017. I think this speaks volumes, not only to the effectiveness of the organization, but also to the will of the Irish authorities to recognize the value of multiculturalism. It's also not the first time that a grassroots Roma organization has won this award. 14 years ago, in 2007, the Max van der Stoel Award was presented to the European Roma Rights Center from Hungary. The rights of travelers and Roma and Sinti will continue to remain a priority for the OEC High Commission on National Minorities and for the entire OEC, and indeed for international community as a whole. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, today in an increasingly divided world, we seek wisdom in words and actions directing us to build unity, spearhead community building, and spread cohesion among all members of society, including minorities. Over 100 years ago, poet and philosopher from Kazakhstan, from the ancient Kazakh land, Abay, said, "Адамзаттың бәрін сүй бауырым" деп, which means love all of humanity like your own kin. For me, these words reflect Pavee Point's efforts to first and foremost recognize our common humanity and kinship with Roma and travelers. Pavee Point Travel and Roma Center makes concentrated efforts towards unifying Irish society and has laid the foundation for the peaceful coexistence of people in a stable and secure sustainable environment for the years to come. I hope that you, distinguished participants, your nations and international and civic organizations present today, much like the international jury of the 2020 Max van der Stoel Award, will draw inspiration from the Pavee Point Travel and Roma Center, and I thank all of you for gathering here today to recognize and celebrate their remarkable achievement. I would like to conclude my statement with an old Irish blessing. May the roof above us never fall in, and may the friends gathered below it never fall out. I thank you for your kind attention and for your presence. Thank you.
Our next speaker is the host of our event, is General Director Erik de Baats, Carnegie Foundation Peace Palace, for your welcoming words.
Dear Excellencies, a warm welcome to the Peace Palace. Your Excellency, Minister Knapen, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, dear High Commissioner on National Minorities, Mr. Abdrahmanov, dear Secretary General of the OSCE, Mr. Schmidt, dear Director of the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, Mr. Makachi, dear Mr. Zanier, Chair of the Jury for the 2020 Max van der Stoel Award. It's good to see you back here. Dear family members of the late Max van der Stoel, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and of course, dear laureates. It is an honor for me, as Director of the Carnegie Foundation Peace Palace, to welcome you here at the Peace Palace, the global icon of peace and justice, for this important occasion particularly. Today we are here to celebrate the Max van der Stoel Award, the first High Commissioner, and to honor the laureates' extraordinary and outstanding achievements in improving the position of national minorities in the OSCE participating states. These achievements fit this venue excellently, as the values behind it are the crucial drivers to prevent conflict and to promote peace. Therefore, I am pleased that the Dutch government and the High Commissioner on National Minorities have chosen the Peace Palace as the venue for this award ceremony. I'm pretty sure Max van der Stoel himself would have been pleased too, as his painting as former chairman of the board of the Carnegie Foundation that owns and manages the Peace Palace is still manifestly present in our boardroom here at the Peace Palace. His engagement to promote peace and justice included both the Office of High Commissioner for National Minorities of the OSCE and the mission of the Peace Palace. Allow me to give you a brief overview of the mission of those active here at the Peace Palace, so you know a little bit more of why here. Exactly 122 years ago, in 1899, statesmen and diplomats from all over the world gathered here in The Hague with the aim of stopping ongoing series of wars. The gathering in 1899 was called the First Hague Peace Conference. The idea of peace through law was born. Let's settle potentially violent conflicts peacefully in the courtroom instead of on the battlefield with the loss of human lives and so much more. The most tangible result of that conference back in 1899 was to set up a permanent court of arbitration that prevents conflicts from becoming violent through arbitration on the basis of international law. It's now probably the oldest international organization promoting peace, very active today with an impressive docket of cases. Establishing that institute required building a temple of peace to house that court. Thanks to the donation of the Scottish-American philanthropist Andrew Carnegie, the Peace Palace could be built within 6 years after the Second Hague Peace Conference, when the first stone was laid, and the Peace Palace opened its doors in 1913. Nowadays, the Peace Palace not only houses the Permanent Court of Arbitration, but also the International Court of Justice, the only principal organ of the United Nations, mentioned in the Charter, outside of New York. The ICJ is the highest judicial body, the World Court, and it settles, in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted to it by states and provides advisory legal opinions. The disputes may concern, among others, land frontiers, maritime boundaries, territorial sovereignty, environmental law, and the violation of international humanitarian law. Examples: Ukraine versus Russia, a case going on currently. The Gambia versus Myanmar on the minority of the Rohingya. Iran versus the United States on the sanctions. I'm happy to say that both courts enjoy a growing caseload. So many countries are indeed settled peacefully here instead of on the battlefield. It's peace in action every day. And I think as many people as possible should know that message of hope. Peace is doable. Facilitating peace through law will always be our core business. Carnegie himself believed in that mission. But next to jurisdiction and arbitration, Andrew Carnegie also believed in education. The two courts and so many international institutions here are supported by the Peace Palace Library, one of the largest libraries in the field of international law, peace and justice in the world, and one of the over 2,000 libraries Carnegie funded in the world. In fact, you now find yourself on the stacks of all these publications in international law and peace that are stored here below. With a view to education, the Peace Palace also houses the Hague Academy of International Law that has its courses here in this auditorium. Every summer and winter, the best courses in international law attract hundreds of young academics of all nationalities who are preparing to start a career in the world of diplomacy or international law to become the future diplomats, judges, and arbitrators to promote peace through law for future generations. And we educate the world that peace through law is possible through our visitor center and during events like these. Peace also requires dialogue between those with other backgrounds, cultures, and views, between the majority and minorities, to understand one another and to coexist in peace. So we fully relate to the mission of the OSCE and the Helsinki principles to promote sustainable peace. Here at the Peace Palace, in a regular pre-pandemic year, our foundation facilitates over 90 events per year, so we do our part to bring actors from different backgrounds together to prevent conflicts. The other institutions here obviously also work on a daily basis to promote peace between parties with opposing views and interests. We need to bridge the divides peacefully. Therefore, we are very honored to host this event, to host the OCSE and the Max van der Stoel Award ceremony, and we are excited to learn more from today's impressive laureates. Let me wish you an inspiring event here with a quote from our founder, Andrew Carnegie, that Max van der Stoel surely knew and carried out. Peace wins her way not by force. Her appeal is to the reason and the conscience of us humans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'm honored to introduce Secretary General Helga Maria Schmidt to deliver her remarks. We are very grateful for the OSCE Secretary General joins us at the award ceremony, and your presence, Madam Secretary General, shows that the legacy of Max van der Stoel and the values and principles he stood for as we pay tribute to the work of the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Center are carried forward jointly through the work of the OSCE as a whole. The floor is yours.
Dear Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today with you in this beautiful Peace Palace. And I could not think actually of a better place to represent the ultimate raison d'etre of the OSCE, and which is about dialogue, which is about cooperation, and which is about conflict prevention, and host such an important ceremony such as the Max van der Stoel Award 2020. I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, and I've just had the pleasure to meet the Minister and thank him also personally for being such a generous host. And I would like to thank the High Commissioner on National Minorities, not only for the invitation, but also for the great work he personally does and his great team does, who I also had the pleasure to meet earlier on today. And I wish to begin by congratulating the protagonist of today's event, the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Center. COVID-19 has impacted all our lives, and it continues to do so. In a short time, our lives have changed, and even today, we have to meet under restrictions, but I'm very happy we can meet in person. COVID-19 related measures have hugely affected human rights. they have affected democracy, but they have disproportionately affected and impacting already vulnerable groups, including the Roma and Sinti. The Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Center leads by example, reminding us that if the virus was negatively affecting the world as we knew it, we should not allow it to destroy our core values, such as universal human rights. It is thanks to your hard work that in Ireland, travellers and Roma are now officially recognized as vulnerable groups. And it is thanks to your commitment that authorities identified them as priority groups for COVID-19 testing and vaccination, and much more, as just outlined by the High Commissioner. Your achievements that empower travellers and Roma communities are outstanding, and they may have even prevented instability and conflict. These are the type of stories I think we need to hear more, to be inspired and reminded what ultimately this is all about: promoting conditions in which people can live in true and lasting peace, free from any threat or any attempt when it comes to their security, as affirmed in the Helsinki Final Act, our founding document, which is, for me, one of really the most impressive and important documents that exist. But today's ceremony is important also for a second reason. The discrete work of the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities has continued now for almost 30 years. But from time to time, these indispensable efforts actually deserve a moment in the limelight, and the Max van der Stoel Award is such an occasion. By providing early warning and by seeking early action with regard to tensions involving persons belonging to national minorities, the work of the High Commission on National Minorities is of utmost importance for the OSCE concept of comprehensive security. It is even more true in a polarized environment in which the well-established practice of quiet diplomacy of the High Commission for National Minorities has the added value to reassure all interlocutors that very often delicate issues will be handled with the necessary discretion. But of course, no one can work in isolation, so we need to join forces. And this is to say, and this is what I would like to finish on, that I'm proud that in the past months we have engaged in regular consultations with the High Commissioner, also with the ODIHR Director Matteo McCacci is here, and our representative on freedom for the media, Teresa Ribeiro, and also the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, even if the Secretary General cannot be here with us today. We are committed to pursue a truly whole of the OSCE approach, even if we all have our distinct mandates. In conclusion, let me reaffirm that conflict prevention really is the engine for all of our work. Only a long-term investment in conflict prevention can lay the foundation of stability and prosperity for future generations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Our next speaker is the director of the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, Matteo McCacci. The legacy of former High Commissioner Max van der Stoel is also visible in the work of ODIHR, the Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. In September 1993, following the request by the then Swedish chairpersonship, High Commissioner van der Stoel issued a report on Roma in what was then called the CSCE area. And one of his recommendations at the time was that a point of contact for Roma issues was to be established within ODIHR. Since then, the High Commissioner on National Minorities and ODIHR's contact point for Roma and Sinti issues have been working together to advance the position of Roma and Sinti in the OSCE region. Director McCacci, we're very happy you're here. The floor is yours.
Dear organizers, dear Minister, dear High Commissioner, dear Kairat, dear Secretary General, dear Helga, dear Representative for Freedom of the Media, dear Teresa, dear colleagues, friends, it's really a true honor to be here today and to join you for the Max van der Stoel Award ceremony. Allow me to begin by thanking you, dear Kairat, and your capable colleagues for and giving you sincere congratulations for this achievement and all the work you do on behalf of the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. Since 2003, the Max van der Stoel Award has become a recognized symbol of the important role national minorities plays in our democratic societies, as well as a reminder through the passion and commitment of the many prize winners of the work that remains to be done. We are all aware of how the last decade has seen the space for civil society shrinking and the diminishing support and funding opportunities for advancing human rights and improving the situation of national minorities. As a result of this deteriorating situation of human rights, we bear witness to continued manifestation of many forms of racism and discrimination against national minorities, including against Roma and Sinti in the OSCE area. This trend has intensified with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has brought a new wave of intolerant sentiment and hate speech, fueling racism and hate incidents across our societies. These developments added new layers of vulnerabilities to national minorities, and Roma and Sinti in particular. Based on media monitoring data gathered by ODIHR in 2020, 33%, around one-third, of media content related to Roma and Sinti, which was often promoted by mainstream media across a selected number of countries, incited or replicated hate speech, which is a key driver of racist portrayals experienced by Roma and Sinti community. So, acknowledging the important role played by the media in our societies, the OSCE participating states have adopted throughout the years a solid package of commitments, covering both general principles, but also others that are particularly focused on balancing the portrayal of Roma and Sinti by and in the media. Due to these reasons, the Max van der Stoel Award today represents a quintessential tool to acknowledge the important work done by civil society organizations and about the importance of activism, community-based approach, and their tireless commitment. ODIHR is particularly happy that the 2020 Max van der Stoel Award was given to the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Center, which does excellent work in improving the situation of Roma and Irish traveler communities based on their shared experiences of racism and social exclusion. Its work on participation, social justice, and genuine equality, and specifically on combating violence against women, is truly inspiring. Indeed, it can further serve as an example for other national or wider international initiatives showing a group practice that ODIHR remains committed to share across the OSCE region. In consideration of the negative impact that the pandemic has had on the human rights situation overall, it is remarkable to see the active involvement of the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Center in initiatives mitigating these negative effects, especially for the vulnerable and marginalized communities. These efforts have the power to inspire action by both their active and direct impact on improvement of the situation of traveler and Roma communities, but also by their cooperative approach involving communities and working with national authorities. This work is generally appreciated by us at ODIHR. And as you know, in line with the action plan on improving the situation of Roma and Sinti within the OSCE area, which was adopted in 2003 in Maastricht, ODIHR assists participating states in combating racism and discrimination. Our priorities are ensuring equal access and opportunities in education, employment, housing and health services, as well as enhancing public participation and the protection of fundamental rights in crisis and post-crisis situations. During the COVID-19 pandemic, and this work continues to this day, ODIHR has been monitoring and assessing the human rights situation of Roma and Sinti with particular attention to cases of racism, discrimination, racially motivated incidents and hate crimes, interethnic tensions, and the portrayal of Roma and Sinti in mass media. Our annual hate crimes report indicates that in 2020, a total of 84 incidents have been reported against Roma and Sinti. However, this number is unfortunately not a true depiction of the real situation, as many hate incidents and crimes against Roma and Sinti are often unreported. Let me use this opportunity to inform you that just a few days ago, ODIHR has released its latest 2020 hate crime report in the OSCE area, one of our flagship publications. And also thanks to the contributions received by Roma civil society organizations, relevant data on Roma and Sinti communities are included in the report, and I'm sure you will find it both useful and interesting. Indeed, and more broadly, ODIHR's work on Roma and Sinti issues relies on the crucial input received by civil society organizations. And to this end, the ODIHR contact point for Roma and Sinti issue, which was just mentioned, continues to build capacity of civil society and works on further developing relationship and cooperation with Roma and Sinti organizations. As you can see, ODIHR's mandate creates opportunities and means of work that we deeply share with the Pavee point, and this is something going toward the common goals of improving human rights situation of Roma and Sinti in our region. It is only through continued actions that we can keep building on the progress being made in our joint efforts to eradicate negative stereotype and discrimination of traveler Roma communities, including of Roma women and children. Extending once again our congratulations for this important award, ODIHR looks forward to future cooperation with Pavee Point Center and other like-minded civil society partners. Thank you very much.
I'm now very pleased to welcome our next speaker, Ambassador Lamberto Zanier, who chaired the Max van der Stoel Award in 2020 and who will deliver the statement on behalf of the jury. As a former OSCE Secretary General and former High Commissioner on National Minorities, Ambassador Zanier continues his engagement with the OSCE as we near the 50th anniversary of the organization. Ambassador, please, the floor is yours.
Dear Minister, dear Secretary General and heads of institutions, dear High Commissioner de Kairat and High Commissioners, former High Commissioners, dear laureates and members of the jury, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here today on behalf of the international jury, which I was chairing at the time when it decided to confer this award to the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre from Ireland, in recognition of its continued efforts to strengthen the genuine integration of Ireland society by advocating and protecting the rights of the traveller and Roma communities. To better explain the relevance of this choice, let me quote the founding father of the Office of the High Commissioner, Max van der Stoel, who said back in '99, "The plight of the Roma is something that we should all be concerned with, not only in the context of protection of persons belonging to national minorities or the human dimension, but because it is a matter that affects us all Europeans." In advocating for long-term solutions, he added that majority communities must learn to accept the right of persons belonging to a minority, such as the Roma, to maintain their own cultural identity and ways of life. And majority communities may eventually see how such diversity is in fact a source of enrichment for the society. Roma, for their part, must, however, manifest their interest in equal participation in society by showing civic responsibility and taking an active role in addressing community problems. And I believe it is safe to say that similar reflections can be made when it comes to the traveller community as well. So the jury, not surprisingly, had a difficult choice to make, as we consider many excellent nominations. But it acknowledged that since its foundation in 1985, the Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre had recognized the need for solidarity between Roma and Irish traveller communities based on their shared experience of racism and social inclusions. Its mission is to improve the quality of life, living circumstances, status and participation of travellers and Roma. And it does this by working innovatively for social justice, greater solidarity, development, equality, and human rights, which is precisely the spirit of the engagement of the High Commission on National Minorities to foster social cohesion in the OSCE area. The jury found that the Pavee Point, with its unique grassroots efforts, systemic work, and carefully tailored approach, which is sensitive to the needs of their communities, stood out among the nominees, gaining a unanimous vote. This non-governmental organization has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate great determination and perseverance in supporting the integration of Ireland's diverse society. For over 30 years, it has pioneered innovative and groundbreaking work using a collective community development approach to address issues and to promote the rights of the Roma and traveller communities in Ireland. And this organization, consisting of travellers, Roma, and members of the majority population, works together at the local, regional, and national level to ensure that travellers and Roma have a voice and are included in decision-making processes. Working on the premise, nothing about us without us, means that Roma travellers can decide the future for their own communities. By carrying out initiatives on education and healthcare, Pavee Point also worked to combat violence against women and support participation in programs that bridge economic and societal inequalities. Equally important is Pavee Point awareness-raising effort within the broader society as they work towards eradicating negative stereotypes and discrimination against Roma and traveller community, including against women and children. And in 2017, their lobbying efforts to achieve change that would improve equality led to the Republic of Ireland extending official legal recognitions for travellers as a minority ethnic group. And this is truly inspirational. But the story of Pavee Point does not end here. Over the last 20 or so months, as High Commissioner Abdurrahmanov pointed out, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on already vulnerable communities throughout the OSCE area. And in fact, the Office of the High Commissioner issued a series of recommendations focusing exactly on this problem. And during this time, Pavee Point took on a number of new initiatives, including cooperating with the national authorities to mitigate the negative implications of the pandemic for the Roma and traveller communities. So I started these remarks with some words from Max van der Stoel, and I would like now to conclude with some words from the founding member and first director of Pavee Point, John O'Connell. Open up our minds, and more importantly, our imaginations. Take another look at the notion of nomadism in the lives of travellers, and see it not as an aberration, but as a fulfilling and humane form of existence. I hope that Pavee Point will continue to open up minds and enable others to understand and live side by side with the Roma and traveller communities. With these words, I wish, on behalf of the jury, to congratulate Dr. Anastasia Clickley and Martin Collins and everyone at Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre for their ongoing efforts to improve the situation of Irish travellers and Roma. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it's now my pleasure to invite Minister Knapen to come to the podium and to present the award to the winner on behalf of the Government of the Netherlands.
Your Excellencies, family members of Max van der Stoel, ladies and gentlemen. In the autumn of his life, Max van der Stoel was asked to serve as the first OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities. The role and mandate of this institution had been left intentionally vague. He had no clear idea how his work might help resolve conflict or improve the lives of national minorities. But he did it anyway. In his personal diaries, he wrote that being High Commissioner reminded him of some lines by the Spanish poet Antonio Machado. Traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking, beat by beat, verse by verse. How fitting that today we are presenting the award that carries his name to Pavee Point, an organization that has made a path for travelers and Roma in Ireland. beat by beat, verse by verse. A path that needed to be made. Because when travelers or Roma move, they often find that barriers have been put up, or that laws have made moving to certain places illegal, that their children are shunned in school, or that they themselves can only find work by concealing their cultural identity. Pavee Point was started by people who witnessed all of this and refused to accept it. People who saw the devastating effects of discrimination and exclusion on traveler and Roma communities, who believed that society could do better, and who set out on the long road to actually improving it. People like Martin Collins, who has been with Pavee Point from the beginning, and Anastasia Crickley, who has long served as its chairperson. I am pleased to say that both of them are here with us today. The work done by Pavee Point has been foundational. Starting small, you created a professional organization with a wide range of volunteers, a broad network throughout the traveler and Roma communities in Ireland. You identified challenges faced by these communities and pioneered health, well-being, and social justice programs. And you fought ceaselessly to give travelers and Roma a voice at tables where they would otherwise have remained voiceless. To make sure they are heard in the halls of power and seen in the courts of law. For more than 30 years, Pavee Point has done all of these things, and with remarkable results. In 2017, Ireland recognized travelers as a distinct ethnic group, an act which acknowledged and valued their culture and identity and conferred the status of a protected group in Irish equality legislation. A major step on the road to acceptance and equality, and an achievement that would have been appreciated by Max van der Stoel. Throughout his life, van der Stoel was guided by his deep-seated respect for human rights and the notion that democracy and international institutions are the best methods for fighting injustice. He was one of my predecessors as Minister of Foreign Affairs, and an example in more ways than one. He was later called the quiet diplomat because he preferred being effective to being in the limelight. But he was anything but quiet when it came to the causes he stood for. He spoke out against injustice, thoughtfully and effectively. He was the first foreign minister to place human rights front and center in Dutch foreign policy, a priority which I am proud to say we have upheld ever since. Because we as a country believe, like Max van der Stoel did, that human dignity is universal, that human rights are universal, and that we have a duty to help protect and advance them. To paraphrase one of his speeches, they are not just decorations we put on policy, they are the policy. Because ignoring injustices will eventually lead to discharges of tensions, which could sweep away stability anywhere in the world. That's why we believe everyone is entitled to rights and dignity, no matter if they are different, vulnerable, or disagree with their governments. Ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last 2 years, we have all had at least some experience of what it is like to have our movements restricted and our opportunities limited. Even this ceremony is symbolic in that regard. As 2021 draws to a close, we are celebrating the winner of the 2020 award, an organization that fights for the rights of groups whose culture and identity are built around movement and an unrestricted life. Something that we can all appreciate, perhaps now even more than before. I want to commend Pavee Point on the excellent work it has been doing for over 3 decades. Where there was no path, you have made one by walking. Today's award is well deserved. Your work is an example to all of us, and I am proud that we can honor Max van der Stoel's memory by celebrating your achievements. And now it's my pleasure to invite the representatives of Pavee Point, Anastasia Quickly and Martin Collins, to join me on stage to receive the award certificate. Thank you very much. But where's the certificate?
Yes.
Here it is.
It was camouflaged.
I thought it was something big, but it is something very precise. Well, since we all have to keep distance, I can only show it you this way, give it you this way, and congratulate you. with this award. Something in it.
Very good. Thank you.
I would now like to invite you all to watch a short movie about Pavee Point. It's a tradition that a short documentary film is produced for the Max van der Stoel Award ceremony, which is then being used by our office in the different events we hold throughout the OC area. The short film will then be followed by a congratulatory video message by Minister Roderick O'Gorman, Minister for Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth of Ireland. And I would like to thank Ambassador Dowling and his team for facilitating a message from the Minister. Thank you.
We didn't know because we were too young, and parents weren't educated enough to know what discrimination was.
It was the first time I've heard language such as racism, institutionalised segregation.
We recognised what was happening for travellers in Ireland as racism.
What I would say is, being the traveller, being the woman, and being the traveller woman, that we would face layers of discrimination. But now, hell no, I know what discrimination is now.
In 2020, Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre won the Max van der Stoel Award in recognition of its continued efforts to strengthen the genuine integration of Irish society by advocating for and protecting the rights of travellers and Roma communities. Established in 1985, Pavee Point empowers Roma and traveller communities to overcome a long history of multiple and intersectional discrimination. By working closely together, travellers and settled people aim to achieve collective progress for the community and change the perception of settled communities towards travellers and Roma. This is our story.
My first formal introduction to what is Pavee Point today was in January of 1985.
The 1980s in Ireland was a very different place to the Ireland of today. Travellers were somehow delinquent settled people or delinquent non-travellers who needed to be reoriented and reintegrated into society.
It was the beginning of my consciousness raising. It was the beginning of me being politicised around these really important issues that have a huge impact on our community.
we were very conscious of the need for an analysis that understood the structural injustices that were part of Irish society and the structural injustices that created conditions which marginalised travellers and left them on the margins of society.
There was no acknowledgement of our culture, our history, our values and our belief systems. There was no acknowledgement of nomadism and the right to travel.
We're very concerned that the way forward had to be a way that was inclusive of travellers themselves. And finally, we were very conscious from the beginning that traveller women's rights need to be a substantial part of anything we did.
30% of 16 to 18-year-old travellers are enrolled in secondary education, compared to 90% of all 16 to 18-year-olds. The unemployment rate among travellers is 84%. The Irish government published a report on recommendations for a traveller education strategy in 2006. The government is yet to publish this strategy.
For Pavee Point, education has always been a part of the organisation and the community.
We need to deal with the institutional racism that exists in our schools, and our school curriculum needs to be adapted to reflect traveller history and traveller culture, so the schools have become a more inclusive environment.
We also used to do call out to schools doing presentations around Pavee Point and traveller and Roma cultures.
We need to put in place strategies and supports to ensure that a lot more travellers are accessing education at all levels.
We would like the traveller education strategy to be implemented, took down, looked into, worked on and implemented.
Have a really positive and inclusive experience of education and come out the other end with qualifications in a whole range of disciplines.
Put out there so more work can go into education, because education is very important.
It's really important that we are given these opportunities, because the ambition is there, there's no doubt about it.
Across the board, travellers die in greater numbers from all causes than the general population. On average, traveller males live 15 years less than settled males. For traveller women, the gap is 11 years. Infant mortality is 3.6 times higher than the national average.
When we said we knew there was health inequalities, they were saying, oh, well, that's because travellers don't turn up for their appointments. Whereas we knew there was institutional barriers, you know, and racism that was stopping travellers achieving what they should have been able to achieve. If you have no water, no toilets, no electricity, if you have a poor education, if you're unemployed, if you're living in poverty, all of these things affect your health status. We had to lobby for many years until finally in 2008 we succeeded in getting the All-Ireland Traveller Health Study undertaken, and that was published in September 2010.
So it's very important that it was done by travellers for travellers, but also what made it more important, it was done in a way that travellers could understand it, and also people who had huge literacy problems still went out and done research in their own community.
There was some resistance at the start. They were thinking, these aren't researchers, we can't trust these. These were people who couldn't read and write. So we got tablets, you know, little laptops, and so people didn't have to know how to read and write. I remember when we were piloting it, we had a question about water, and we had a tap and we had a glass of water with ice in it. And the traveller said, that's not about water, because if you have ice in a glass, it means you're drinking alcohol, and that tap would be in a bathroom and no one would drink water out of a bathroom tap. So then we ended up with the tea tap, which is what travellers would use outside.
But also what was very important was for us and for myself, there was a voiceover, but also it was colour-coded and people was trained on the laptop as well. Don't ever think somebody can't do a bit of research in their own community. If there's literacy problems, there's lots of ways that they can actually do it.
And that gave us the evidence that we now use. We have 134 excess deaths for travellers every year. We know that we have the evidence from the All-Ireland Health Study. You have to say, why do 134 extra travellers die than should die? It's to do with the quality of care and the access to services in a timely manner. And that's to do with racism within the health service, whether we like it or not.
In the travel community, there are myths around domestic violence. And one of the main myths, what I would hear very common, is it's part of our culture. It's not part of anybody's culture. Domestic violence is about a person having power and control over another person. But a big part of my work as well is also to work with service providers in the area of domestic and sexual violence. And that work means, by working with the services, that they know that traveller women do face barriers on leaving, being afraid to speak out to services, being judged as a traveller woman, and that kind of comes from the past of the way they were treated, but also to the present.
In 2020, Pavee Point was the recipient of the Max van der Stoel Award.
The Max van der Stoel Award is a prize of €50,000, which is presented every 2 years to a group, a person, or an institution for extraordinary and outstanding achievements in improving the position of national minorities in any of the OSCE participating states. The jury decided to honor Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre in recognition of its continued efforts to strengthen the genuine integration of Ireland society by advocating and protecting the rights of the traveller and the Roma communities.
I am delighted that the jury selected Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre, and I hope that this award will bring wider international recognition of the excellent work this prominent organization does to advance the rights of Irish travellers and Roma.
I think the recognition that going the road less travelled is important, and that collective community work approaches which acknowledge racism and are built on rights are fundamental, is really very important for us.
I think there are two big differences between now and back in the early 80s. One, obviously, is the recognition of traveller ethnicity. That really was a very historic and symbolic moment in our history as a people. And I think the other big difference between now and in the early 80s is we are very fortunate that we have many, many travellers, men and women, right across the country at local, regional and national level who are doing absolutely Trojan work in representing and advocating on behalf of their community.
I would have never gone to a meeting with the health boards or the HSE or Department of Health, and even now I wouldn't, Minister for Health, without a traveller.
It's also really important that travellers themselves, in solidarity with non-travellers, are actually at the table when these discussions are taking place.
And increasingly over the years, the travellers are leading the discussion and I'm more in the background, you know. So it's around making sure that there's nothing about us without us.
And thankfully on the 1st of March 2017, our then Taoiseach stood up in our national parliament and fully and unequivocally recognised my community as a distinct ethnic minority in the island of Ireland. This can lay the foundations where we can create a more equal and a more inclusive society that's respectful of traveller culture and traveller identity and traveller history.
COVID-19 reached the Republic of Ireland on the 29th of February 2020. Pavee Point immediately recognised that it could have a devastating effect on the traveller and Roma communities due to their existing health inequalities and poor living conditions.
We knew that one of the protections was that you had to do a lot of hand washing and you had to do a lot of physical distancing and social distancing. And we knew that many travellers unfortunately continue to live in very poor conditions.
Obviously in the middle of a global pandemic, some groups are more vulnerable to contracting and spreading the virus than others. And the traveller and the Roma community in Ireland have been recognised as a group that has a particular vulnerability.
We knew we had challenges ahead. We as travel organisations have been lobbying for the previous 20 years for water, toilets, electricity. We couldn't get them delivered. But because of a public health crisis, because of a pandemic, within a couple of weeks, many of those sites got water, toilets, electricity.
Pavee Point's mission is to contribute to improvement in the quality of life, living circumstances, status and participation of travellers in Roma through working innovatively for social justice, greater solidarity, development, equality and human rights.
It'd be good to see our children that's in the education system coming out the same as any other child and getting a job, no matter what kind of a job that they want.
For young travellers, or even travellers like going back as mature students, to get their qualifications and their degrees and to go out in life and to be where they want to be.
My hopes for the future would be that travellers are more visible. Doctors, solicitors, barristers, school teachers.
You need immediate special measures. And by special measures, I mean direct action by the state.
There's some positive action measures happening which are very, very welcome and something we've pushed for many years. But they cannot just benefit traveller men are more educated travellers. Those positive action measures have to have outcomes for the whole traveller community. There has to be collective outcomes for all of the traveller and Roma communities.
But I'm wishing for the young people that something good will happen for them, and that when they go to look for a job, that they won't be put out the door or discriminated against because they're a traveller.
Travellers and traveller organisations need to be directly involved in the development, monitoring and the overseeing of well-resourced targeted measures.
At the moment we have a woman representing in the government, Eileen Flynn, which is a great achievement, and again I would like to see more of this.
We're not going to get anything in this world if we don't all stand together in solidarity and fight for it. So that's where I want to be in the future.
Pavee Point has played a significant role in and continues to advocate on the National Traveller and Roma Inclusion Strategy and associated EU Roma Strategy Framework 2020 to 2030. Developing and implementing the holistic traveller education strategy committed to by the current Irish government. Publishing and implementing the forthcoming National Traveller Health Action Plan. Ireland's compliance with and progress on international human rights obligations under a range of UN Council of Europe and the OSCE conventions, commitments and charters.
Dear Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my thanks on behalf of the Government of Ireland to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands and the High Commissioner on National Minorities, Ambassador Khairat Abdrakhmanov, for hosting this event today at the Peace Palace. I would also like to pay tribute to the Dutch government for the establishment and sponsorship of the Max van der Stoel Award, which honours extraordinary and outstanding achievements aimed at improving the position of national minorities in the OSCE area. The award is a fitting tribute and memory of the first OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities, Max van der Stoel. The values embodied by this award, protecting and promoting the fundamental rights of minorities as a part of a comprehensive approach to security, are the values of the OSCE itself. Ireland strongly supports these values and the work of the High Commissioner. We wish to thank the Government of the Netherlands for continuing to work through this award and in its support for the institutions of the OSCE to advance these values and protect human rights throughout the OSCE area. I'm grateful for the opportunity to congratulate Pavee Point as the first Irish recipient of this award, who have been recognised for their continued efforts to strengthen the genuine integration of Ireland's society by advocating for and protecting the rights of the traveller and Roma communities. I would also like to thank Barrister Brendan Gogarty for successfully nominating Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre for this award, as well as the expert jury of the Max van der Stoel Award, chaired by former High Commissioner Lamberto Zanier, for coming to this unanimous decision. Since 1985, Pavee Point has raised awareness of the fundamental rights of Ireland's traveller and, more recently, Roma communities, groups who have long suffered from negative stereotypes and systemic discrimination. Through celebrating the unique cultures, languages, traditions and shared experiences of these communities, Pavee Point helps to improve solidarity between travellers and Roma, while also advancing understanding among wider Irish society. Furthermore, in their work to ensure full equality of opportunity for travellers and Roma and to remove barriers to their full and equal role in Irish life, such as in the areas of health, education or employment, Pavee Point has contributed to making Ireland a more diverse and inclusive society. In this context, I would like to commend the long-standing dedication of Miss Anastasia Crickley and Mr. Martin Collins accepting this award today on behalf of Pavee Point in promoting the rights of the traveller and Roma communities in Ireland. The Irish government has sought to bring about meaningful change and progress for the traveller and Roma communities through a strategic process, the National Traveller and Roma Inclusion Strategy, published in 2017. The strategy encompasses actions on cultural identity, education, employment, health and accommodation. It is overseen by a monitoring committee, which I chair, which includes government departments and agencies. The committee also includes Pavee Point and other members of the Traveller and Roma communities, reflecting the process of collaboration between the Irish government and civil society in advancing key rights. Work is beginning across government to develop a successor strategy, and we will continue to work with Pavee Point throughout this process. Ireland highly values its close cooperation with the High Commissioner on National Minorities, as well as with the heads of the OSCE's other autonomous institutions, the Director of the Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, ODIHR, and the Representative on Freedom of the Media, or FOM. These institutions all work to realise the OSCE's comprehensive concept of security by ensuring respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms, democracy and the rule of law in the OSCE region. Ireland will continue to work on recommendations provided by the HCNM, ODIHR and or FOM, including with regard to Traveller and Roma communities, to ensure a more inclusive, stable and secure environment for us all. Finally, I just again like to offer my sincere congratulations to Pavee Point for this very well-deserved award.
It's now my pleasure to invite Anastasia Crickley and Martin Collins to come to the stage for their acceptance speech. We celebrate today the work of Pavee Point, but you are also very much recognized as human rights champions in the wider OSCE region, and we're very proud that you are here. The floor is yours.
Minister, Your Excellency, OSCE High Commissioner for National Minorities, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It is both an honour and a privilege to be here today to accept this prestigious Max van der Stoel Award. And in accepting this award, I do so on behalf of all my colleagues in Pavee Point Traveller and Roma Centre. I also accept this award on behalf of all those people who have supported or who have been associated one way or another with Pavee Point over the last 35 years. I thank them for their solidarity. This award to Pavee Point is both a recognition and a validation of our innovative approach in addressing the racism and social exclusion of travellers and Roma in Ireland. This is an issue that is all too familiar, not just in Ireland, but indeed at a European level. We see the ongoing manifestations of this racism exclusion in the low educational attainment of travellers in Europe, poor living conditions, segregation, high unemployment, health inequalities. Many challenges quite clearly remain at both member state level and indeed at a European level to address the barriers to achieving full equality and inclusion of travellers and Roma. The new EU Framework Strategy 2030 for Roma and traveller inclusion provides a real opportunity in this regard. But it's really important, as was emphasised in the video clip you have looked at, that there is full participation and inclusion of travellers and Roma in the development, designing and the implementation of the new EU Framework Strategy for Roma inclusion. It's absolutely essential that the Roma and travellers are involved in setting the targets and the objectives and involved in the monitoring and the implementation of this new strategy. Traveller and Roma participation is not just important in the context of the new EU Framework Strategy for Roma and Traveller Inclusion, but it's a very important principle, full stop, across all policy measures and programmes designed to address the racism and exclusion experienced by travellers and Roma. It is not rocket science. Policies, plans and measures to address these challenges are much more likely to be effective when the voices and travellers and Roma have been heard and have influenced the process, and there's a sense of ownership among those communities of these policies. As I said, they are much more likely to succeed. I can't let this moment pass without acknowledging my late colleague and friend, John O'Connell, a founding member and the first director of Pavee Traveller and Roma Centre. John O'Connell passed away 22 years ago this coming Sunday. John was the husband of Anastasia Crigley, who's the chairperson of Pavee Point. And I know it can't be an easy time at this moment for Stacia or her son, Colleen. It was John O'Connell's groundbreaking analysis that changed everything in terms of the work with Irish travellers. John broke new ground in promoting a community development approach to the work with travellers and its inherent principles around traveller leadership, traveller participation, travellers' lived experience and voices being heard at the policy-making arenas. Prior to that, we were completely excluded from these processes. Thankfully, that has changed due to John's vision and groundbreaking analysis. He also brought a new analysis around cultural rights and the right to one's identity, the right to one's history, the right to one's language, and to have this validated and respected by institutions of state. And that was really important, because in 1985, when John brought that analysis, it paid off eventually on the 1st of March 2017, when the Din Taoiseach stood up in our Parliament and unequivocally recognised my community as a distinct ethnic group. That was really important, historic and symbolic, and it did put to bed the racist ideology that my community were somehow deviants, misfits, dropouts from the famine era, and all we need to do was rehabilitate, civilise and normalise my community. On the 1st of March 2017, as I say, that racist ideology which prevailed for decades on the island of Ireland has been put to bed. Again, that was John's analysis. I have here a pin which marks that very historic day, and there are some, in fact there's a lot of those ethnicity pins over there on top of the table. And what's quite interesting about this pin is a traditional wagon wheel, and it covers the harp, the Irish symbol. So it captures both of our identities, both our nationality and our ethnicity, and that's absolutely crucial. We're not choosing one over the other. They both can and should mutually coexist peacefully. And then finally, John also promoted the whole concept of solidarity with other communities and movements for social change. So there was a collective effort to effect social and positive change. We accept this award in honour of many people, as I say, who are presently involved in Pavee Point or who have been associated with Pavee Point over the years, but in particular, we accept this award in John's memory and John's vision and commitment to human rights. So I want to thank you for this award. It has given us a renewed energy and encouragement to continue our important work into promotion and to protection of the human rights of travellers and Roma in Ireland. And finally, I'm just saying, in this context, I'm reminded of Mr. Juncker's quote, former President of the European Commission, when he was speaking about travellers and Roma. He said, "We all know what we need to do. We just don't know how to get re-elected when we do it." In fighting for human rights, it takes courage and leadership. Thank you.
Minister, High Commissioner, and OSCE friends, old and new, as well as everyone who is here. It's an honour and a privilege for me to be here today alongside Martin, to thank you for this award and to be part of accepting it on behalf of Pavee Point. I'm very glad also to be able to acknowledge, as the first Irish recipient of the award, that we are not the first Roma and Traveller recipient of the award, and I'm delighted also to see my good friend from the Roma contact point here, and to acknowledge the Roma Sinti contact point, to acknowledge the collaboration and cooperation that we've had with you and with Odir and with many of you in this room over the years. You've seen and heard from Martin a lot about us and how we came about, so I won't detain you for too long. But I would just like to say again that for us, it was very important from the beginning to go the road less travelled, to speak to rights very clearly, to speak to collective progress rather than just individual advancement, while acknowledging the need for individual advancement, and to do what is now acknowledged as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, of working with the furthest back first, but not in any way, working in a way that said, as Ronnie said very clearly in the video, nothing about us without us. So that from the beginning, our work was one of partnership. So it's not an organization that somehow by non-travellers got delivered to travellers. It's an organization that from the very beginning, Martin and others were part of and played very significant roles in. That process of collective empowerment hasn't been an easy road. And it hasn't been an easy road either for the travellers in Ireland and the travellers in Roma in Ireland, and for the many Roma that I've come to know and Sinti over the years throughout Europe. And I want to salute all of them. I want to salute, starting with the European, my very old friend Nicola Giorgio, may he rest in peace, and all of those who blazed a trail in early days through conflict zones that the OSCE were well involved in, and played very significant roles in creating conditions for some move. I want to acknowledge the way in which, right from the very beginning, the Office of the High Commissioner took on the issues associated with Roma and with travellers. And I want in particular, as has already been done, to acknowledge the work of Max van der Stoel. But in doing all of that, I'm very conscious that at this point in time, there has been a very particular difficulty for all concerned with human rights globally, and in particular for those of us involved with Roma and travellers. And I want to salute very significantly today, because she wasn't able to be with us, and because it's been her contribution that has determinedly made sure that Pavee Point went the road less travelled for the last 30 plus years, and determinedly made sure that Pavee Point led the initiatives that created the conditions for some improvements, based on public health concerns, I might add, rather than human rights concerns, for travellers and for Roma in Ireland during COVID. So I want to salute the main author of this report, Ronnie Fay, who along with Martin is the co-director of Pavee Point. She hasn't been well, but she has continued her work throughout. And I'd just like, if you didn't mind, that we would all give her a round of applause, because I think she might be watching. Ronnie, your determination to stick with the principles that were enunciated from the beginning, your determination to stick with those, and to stick with making sure that travellers are directly involved, not just in dealing with the outcomes, but in designing and making the projects. That has been part of what has guaranteed the continued existence of Pavee Point and what guarantees our continued determination. I'd like to acknowledge and salute also the brave travellers and Roma, as I said, who have in Ireland made that route. And in particular, let me salute Martin, who has stood out and gone that road less travelled in ways that I think have been difficult for you on more than one occasion. So thank you, Martin, for standing beside the rest of us, and thank you for standing so solidly in leadership in your own community with many others. Irish state support has been important for Pavee Point. And I'd like to acknowledge also the Minister's remarks, Minister O'Gorman's remarks this afternoon. Thank you, Minister. And also the contributions and presence here of the ambassadors to the Kingdom of the Netherlands and to, of course, the OSCE and your colleagues as well. We will continue in that road of critical friendship in supporting and challenging you and your ministers to ensure that much that remains to be achieved. And while some things have been achieved, there is much that remains to be achieved for travellers and for Roma in our country and in all the other participating states of the European Union. So our commitment and our challenge to you, Minister, your good colleagues here, is to continue in that critical friendship and in that concern with equilibrium and parity of esteem for all who are part of this country and part of Europe and part of the OSCE, to challenge you and to support you to work towards those achievements, including that education strategy, which is in your programme for government and that people like myself and others have been campaigning for a couple of decades by this stage. Turning now, and I think I better stop because you've had enough talking nearly, but I think it would be wrong of me not to, remembering to link back to all of you who are here, and to recall, as I was doing earlier, the role of the OSCE as a platform for dialogue across all of the participating states. A platform I've been honoured to be part of on a number of occasions. A platform, I'd put it to you, that's all the more necessary even as there are challenges and even conflicts and some ongoing difficulties between participating states. I want to salute you, Secretary General and High Commissioner, and all of you who are here in your different roles, including Teresa and Matteo, for the job that you do, because for me and for the future of this part of the world, I think that platform is very, very important. And in saluting you, I want to salute those of you who are here, whom I've had the pleasure to know and to work with over the years, including all of the previous Secretary Generals and High Commissioners for National Minorities. It's always been a pleasure to work with you, and it's always been a pleasure to be able to recognise your real commitment, which was well beyond what might have been required on the day. And glad to see Astrid here as well, because it's always good to see other women who were involved in this work. I want to, though, salute you and, and to say that the OSCE Award for us reinforces our determination to continue in the footsteps of Max van der Stoel, and I'm delighted some of his family are able to be with us, until Roma and travellers and minorities everywhere can live sustainable rights with sustainable lives with full equality and justice, whatever that means for them, in terms that are appropriate for their communities. I want to salute the ongoing work of the High Commissioner and of all his team who created the conditions for today. I'm glad to be able to say that I do believe that our work has a relevance to the progress that can be achieved against the odds, including during COVID-19. I think our work has a relevance for each of the 57 participating OSCE states. I hope there's something that you'll be able to take from it. There is lots that we have been able to take from you and from being able to engage with you, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Enough words, as Anastasia quickly said. So we are happy to conclude our ceremony with a performance from Rose Connolly. Rose Connolly is an Irish musician, sound artist, composer, and multi-instrumentalist, currently studying composition in the Hague Conservatory of Music. She grew up playing and singing Irish traditional music, and is currently trying to fuse this music into other contexts. She will sing the song The Blue Tar Road, a song about a traveler's road of hunger, hardship, and poverty.
I am a true-born Irishman, a traveller am I. My home's the road, no fixed abode. I must travel till I die. For few men give me campaign space, and fewer call me friend. For the hard road for the traveller, I must travel till the end. Hunger, hardships, and poverty are the traveller's weary load. Hunger, hardships, and poverty, and the blue tar road. I came to Dublin city fair in the year of '59. I camped in Lansdowne's green valley with others of my kind. But Dublin's corporation, good Christians to a man, tore down our camps, uprooted us, and dragged out our caravans. Hunger, hardships, and poverty are the traveller's weary load. Hunger, hardships, and poverty on the blue tar road. Out here in Cherry Orchard, no cherry blossoms bloom, where forgotten and unwanted in dirt and muck and gloom. But the man above who died for love was nailed onto a tree. For wasn't he a traveller, the same as you and me? But oh, please God, in your own good time, lift the traveller's weary load, and we'll bid farewell to poverty and the blue tar road. Gurmia Mogget.
That was truly beautiful. Thank you very much. This brings us to a close of the ceremony. I would just like to ask a few people to stay behind, the family of the late Max van der Stoel, the laureates, former High Commissioners, OSCE, heads of institutions, Secretary General, because we'd like to take some pictures, and of course with the Minister if you have time as well. I would also, final word, I would like to thank all the staff of the Office of the High Commissioner who did a tremendous job in organizing this event in not so easy circumstances. Thank you very much. Applause is in order. And finally, just to inform you that because of the COVID regulations, we would have to leave the Peace Palace by 6 o'clock at the latest. Thank you very much for the evening. Thank you very much.